a world within our world. They've created a world unlike any other world.
Dungeons and Dragons. And a game like D&D fuels their imagination and makes them feel special.
The ogre is amused by your joke and allows you to pass.
Dad, I'm just curious. What is it about Dungeons and Dragons that suddenly leapt out at you at age 60?
Dungeons, it'd be the dungeons.
Just what I love about role-playing games is being told exactly what to do.
Me too. You should introduce yourselves.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to Guelph's Community Radio. This is CFRU 93.3, and this is the Spellbook. This is the tabletop role-playing game show dedicated to Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons, Battletech, Stargate, Masks, and so much more. My name is Mike the Birdman Ashby, but I'm not alone as we decide to offer you a hand today. From the Feywild city of London, Ontario, Canada.
Hi, I am Damien Magical Hack Morphit, and I'm just here to lend a helping hand.
I love it. So last week on the show, we talked about homework, player buy-in, and hopefully you've had a chance to check out some interesting videos on YouTube, found yourself some really cool content creators, or maybe you're talking with your future DM, or maybe you're going to pick up the thing and do the thing, and hopefully you are going to have a fun time. And please let us know if you happen to do that. Damien, if people want to get in touch with us, how would they go about doing so?
Ooh, the best way of doing that would be at thespellbookshow@gmail.com.
So hopefully we will hear from you sometime in the future. So as I mentioned last show, I forgot to mention this. So recently, Star Trek just celebrated its 60th anniversary, and there was a huge convention in Las Vegas where some people that I work with, like Michael Dismuke and Jim Johnson, Al Spader, a lot of the guys that I work with on Star Trek Adventures happened to be there promoting some really cool Star Trek books. And we finally got to announce from Modiphius the 24th Century Campaign Guide. So that's Voyager, Lower Decks, TNG, DS9, probably Prodigy. I'm not 100% sure. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. So that book is now available for pre-order. I think the PDF comes out fairly soon, with the books expected to ship in November, from what I believe. And that's a book that I actively wrote a lot of really cool sidebars for. Don't know how much I'm allowed to share on that regard, but I do get a chance to fill in some pretty cool gaps with some really cool characters that I'm a big fan of. So look for that. Go to the Modiphius website and check that out. So
that is definitely pretty sweet. And Voyager was the best Star Trek series.
Thank you. You have no idea how vindicated I feel hearing others share that. Although DS9, once you get past the first season, it's pretty good. And O'Brien must suffer. But yes, so this week, guys, we're talking about support heroes. This is not the DPS guy. This is not your tank hero. This is not Conan. This is not the Terminator. We're more talking about Mercy from Overwatch. We're more talking about the guy who is the skill monkey, the people who maybe make sure you can keep going in the fight. And some of these classes for certain games can be amazing damage dealers, but it's what they bring to the battlefield that makes them different than your fighters, your barbarians, your rangers. This is your druids. This is your clerics, wizards, stuff like that. There's so much to talk about. And to give Damien a second to think, I'll kind of tell you how I got into support classes. So oddly enough, my first character was a cleric back in 1992, and I hated it because I didn't know what I could do. And I'm not afraid to say this on air because this guy sucks. I had a terrible DM, horrible DM, didn't know what I could do. But as time went on, I started to experiment with stuff, and it's not just a phase. But I would play your fighters, your barbarians, but then I started to reach out because it was one thing to hit something with like a two-handed greatsword, and that's awesome, but I wanted to do more. So eventually I started experimenting with sorcerers, and I discovered I'm not really a magic guy in that regard. And then my friend Peter got me involved in his game, the longest game I've currently been in, like over 2 years now. And I play a druid called Fox Singer. And that's a very mechanically demanding class. I have to manage wild shapes, which means I can transform into all sorts of cool animals, from a house cat to a giant bear to, like, a land-based octopus that can strangle you from 15 feet away. But that's not all I can do. Sure, I just said I can do all this cool damage stuff, but did you know I can make the battlefield almost impassable with spikes, or I can call down lightning to kind of herd you into a certain area, or perhaps I can heat up metal. So if I want to interrogate you in a particularly cruel way, I could do that. There's so many things that I can do, and I discovered I enjoy more playing the support class, helping my damage dealers out on the front lines, than being one myself.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Like, part of it, like with me, I like you. I played a cleric, early on in my D&D career, quote unquote. And yeah, I didn't like it. I've played like other support characters as well. Like the old school rogue could definitely be played as a support character. As much as you can dish out damage, that is where the stereotypical skill monkey archetype came from. Because in 3rd edition and 3.5, rogues got all of the skills.
Yeah,
Like,
rogues and bards and everything. Yeah,
even above bards. If you wanted to play a character that essentially had all of the skills, play a high int rogue. You had 90% of the skills in the list are yours because you just have the skill points to spend. Where bards kind of got the jack of all trades feature, which kind of made it so that they could do basically anything. But like, and, during that era, I more played, sorcerers and wizards because I like me some spellcasting. And, like, I also kind of bounced around different classes and stuff like that. And, like, they're all fun in their own way. But with the advent of 5th edition and 5.5, what I've played of that, my honestly preferred class is the Artificer. Which is, for me, the most fun support class. Because, like, and you've seen me do this in the campaign that you're running, Mike.
Mhm.
I'll use my Steel Defender to assist the who's ever out in front beating on an enemy as I'm, casting Sanctuary on it and healing other people in the group using my homunculus servant to do cast touch spells from a distance. And especially now that we've leveled up, I have access to web, which means the battlefield is my territory.
Yeah, like, it's stuff like that I think support classes get a bad rap because they automatically assume, oh, you're the medic. And whereas my character Fox Singer, yeah, I keep people alive with spells like Aid, where I give you your hit point maximum increases for the adventuring day. I take a feat like Chef, so I can use a feat called Bolstering Treats, where I give you temporary hit points equal to like 1d8 or something like that, so you can have extra hit. I'm keeping you alive, but I'm the tracker, I'm the survivalist, I'm the medicine check person.
Yeah.
But my strongest martial skill is I've got a really high dexterity, so I'm a sniper. And that's a support thing too, because you're not hanging up front with Conan, you're hanging in the back, keeping things at a range, providing overwatch to the battlefield, making sure your front line guys don't get overwhelmed, and you give them the opportunity to provide cover and suppressing fire. And that's something that I think support classes and heroes maybe need to be recognized for. They're wonderful battlefield controllers. You're not just a mobile mash unit. While that may be an invaluable part of your toolkit, that's when you think about what else you can do, as you mentioned, thieves and bards, that's your social skills. That's your thief. That's your unconventional solution to a problem. Like I know in our game, more often than not, martial combat is something that gets chosen. But when you and some of our other people involve a solution, it's like, okay, how can we solve this using brain power and not firepower? And that's how the support classes, that's basically the ethos behind a lot of support classes. What is the not obvious solution here? And I think support classes offer more opportunities for creative engagement.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because, like, while yes, doing high damage numbers is going to get you through a fight faster. Like, it's going to get you through a fight quickly. However, if you can lock down your adversary, if you can, engineer a way around the fight, even like again, as you said, the support characters aren't just healers, but a well-placed heroism, getting back to D&D, can do more than, doing 2d10 plus 14 damage in a turn.
Yeah. And even some character classes that are built to be frontline fighters do have some support built into them. For example, paladins, when they get above a certain level, they get auras. That aura radiates like 30 feet or 10 feet or whatever it is, and that buffs your saving throw. So now if you work with your support class, like your druid or your bard or whatever, you can start stacking buffs. And very quickly, that fight can very easily turn in your favor because you've turned the battlefield into... It's not fair to say it's numbers, but you're stacking advantages on stacking advantages. And that's what a support class should do. It should be making the fight easier for others so you can focus on something else to solve the problem while your frontline damage dealers go and deal with the primary threat.
Yeah. And yeah, like that's part of it right there is, you're, as the support character, you don't want to be the one who's getting punched. You want to be the one who's assisting the ones that are getting punched. And part of that, and one of the things that I think kind of makes playing as the support a little bit harder, and especially in systems like 5th edition that are also about resource management, is resource management for a support character is effectively doubled.
Yeah, like especially like for me as Fox Singer, if I'm the group healer, which I more often am, or I'm the battlefield control unit, I have to manage my spell slot. So I'm not necessarily throwing down Call Lightning Bolt. I want to be able to cast Aid. I want to be able to pass without trace. I want to make sure my compatriots, my allies, have the abilities and skills they need to get through a fight, but I also need to make sure I'm managing those spell slots. If someone needs a 3rd level healing word or something, I'm ready to go to get someone back up, because the thing about D&D, you're just as effective at 1 hit point as you are at max hit points. So that's something to consider. But we got so much more to talk about today right here on the Spellbook. This is Guelph's Community Radio. This is 93.3 CFRU. Me and Damien will be right back as we talk more about support heroes, skill monkeys, and more. We'll be back right after this.
Hello, CFRU listeners. We are the hosts of Tales from the Bridge podcast. My name is Tristan.
I'm Sam.
I'm Marty.
And I'm Kevin.
You can check out our show, Tales from the Bridge, every Thursday morning on CFRU at 9 a.m.
We interview science fiction creators, including authors, directors of movies.
If you want to check out some of our back episodes, check out our website, talesfromthebridge.com.
So join us, talesfromthebridge.com, or on CFRU Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. And let's make our way over to the bridge.
Welcome back to the Spellbook, right here on 93.3 CFRU Guelph Community Radio, as we talk about support characters. Now, as you were saying before we went to break, as we were kind of getting into, it's a lot of what you kind of have to do as a support player. It's resource management. It's dealing with your spell slots. That one's a big one, especially if you're playing something like, again, I'm going to bring it up again. An artificer or even a paladin is a half caster. Mm-hmm. So I can, if I decide to memorize the spell as an artificer, I can cast Cure Wounds. It's on my spell list, but at level 5, I only have 4 level 1 spells and 2 level 2 spells per day. And if I'm limiting myself to just healing you, well, that means I can't use heroism because I have to save those slots.
Or jump or grease or something like that.
Yeah, or I can't save one of my level 2 slots for rope trick. Which, don't sleep on that spell if it's on your list. Pick it up. It gives you a safe place to short rest.
Yeah, one of the things I do in my game is I always chat with my players. I'm like, okay, what do we need for the day? And I always try to balance utility with a few combat specials. Like, for example, in our last game, my friend Peter, we were facing a stampede of deep wraiths. So I decided, okay, I can transform into a dire wolf, but I could also summon a herd of mastiffs because they were the right CR level. And my friend Peter's like, what are you doing? I'm like, sheepdog. He's like, what? Yeah, I'm going to sheepdog this. And I use my wolf wild shape as a druid to frighten these basically underdark cows into stopping rampaging. And I used my spiritual mastiffs to herd them back into their pen. And my DM's like, that's really clever. I'm thinking, well, yeah, I don't need to kill these things. I don't need to throw down spike growth so I kill them and shred them in the bloody hamburger. No, that's not how I operate. Plus, I've used one wild shape. I can do that twice per short rest. And I can use one of my level 3 spell slots, which I get 3 or 4 at level 7. So I'm managing resources because I want all my spells to be able to assist later. Like, I treat spells like hand grenades. If I'm using them, I better damn well need it. And
yeah, exactly.
And it's something so important too, because a lot of people, and this is something I've noticed in our group specifically, and I think it's the way that I'm designing encounters. So this is be like self-analysis here. A lot of people blow their damaging spells very early. You'll definitely notice this with our one friend, Rick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why would you blow your smites right now? This is literally hour 2 of the adventuring day. We've been playing for an hour. What are you doing? And that's not my job to tell them how to play their character. I'm very hands-off in that regard. But smarter... That's not true. More savvy resource management players like, okay, why would I use my lay on hands when I could spend 10 or 15 gold and get a healing potion, or barter with someone like a cleric or a druid or whoever happens to be a healer in town? Now I've made a connection. Now I've made a relationship. You've given me a service. What can I do for you? And that spell slot is still intact.
Yeah. Another way to approach that too, and one of the things that I was kind of going to touch on when I brought up the whole resource management thing is spell scrolls. Spell scrolls, especially for lower level spells, it takes almost no time to scribe. Like a level 1 spell is 1 day, and I think it's 50 gold pieces worth of materials, and you need either Arcana or Scribe School, Calligrapher's Tools proficiency.
Mhm.
That's it. And like that with our game, I wrote a bunch of scrolls. A couple of scrolls of rope trick, couple of scrolls of there was a few different scrolls that I'd made, and it was basically things that like, okay, I want branding smite on hand. That's a level 2 spell for me. I only have 2 of those a day. So if I need to, do a bunch of burst damage, I have that, and I can then save those level 2 spell slots for web to help the rest of the group be able, and potentially lock down a group of enemies.
So, question. So I have very little experience with players using spell scrolls. Very quickly, explain how that functions as a mechanic.
Mechanically, so as long as you have a spell on your list, you on your spell list for your class, you can cast it from a spell scroll.
And it doesn't use a slot, right?
It does not use a slot. The scroll is a consumable.
Okay, that's very cool. And that's a really good way to do it. And again, that shows forward planning, because support classes, if they rely on anything, it's forethought, not necessarily tactics, though tactics play a part of it depending on how your support character plays out. For example, a rogue, for example, your thief, they have an amazing ability called backstab, but you have to be positioned right. So, yeah, you can do an incredible amount of damage, or you can do something else with your amazing abilities so you don't have to necessarily worry about someone turning around and landing a critical hit on you. Maybe you sabotage something. Maybe you find a trap. Hell, you could even set a trap because you've got that capacity. And there's something so rewarding about being able to manipulate the outcome of things, because you're not being cheeky for the sake of being cheeky. You're being smart. And I think support characters, I think in some ways can be the most rewarding. Like, to move out of fantasy, for example, we talk a lot about cyberpunk here on the show, like Cyberpunk Red, Shadowrun, Urban Shadows, you get the idea. But if you play a support character like a decker or a hacker, think about all you can accomplish it. That's information gathering, that's information manipulation, that's changing, like for example in Shadowrun, maybe that's looping the cameras or turning off the city power grid, maybe routing the phone systems, stuff like that. That's all support stuff that not necessarily the street samurai or the dog shaman can necessarily do.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like that's actually one of the things I'm glad you kind of brought that up, because like that is, I decided long ago, that's the character archetype that I'd be playing were I a player in a Shadowrun game, because I think, like, yeah, you're not the flashy guy in the front, but you can be extremely impactful in a position like that and still help out rather than being the main character, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there are limitations. Again, to stick with Shadowrun, for example, there are characters who can pilot vehicles remotely with drones. So you're literally a mile away sitting in the back of a van and you may be piloting like a little dog with like a machine gun on its back. And that's awesome. But maybe someone throws up radio jamming and now you can't get through that. So you're sitting a mile away with your thumb up your proverbial butt. What are you going to do? But that's valuable too, because not having a finger up your butt, but
I
being
mean,
the bus driver, right? Because you do need to get places. And yeah, you probably have some combat skills, but odds are you're the team's mechanic. You can fix stuff. You're basically the team's artificer when you kind of think about it, because a rigger has to be very smart, has to know how machines work. And along with your character of a decker, a hacker, you have a very powerful mechanical duo who can basically control the battlefield from either in the room where the combat's happening or several city blocks away while you're controlling traffic lights, cameras, automated security systems. One of the coolest things you can do as a rigger, for example, you could take over you can become the building. You can control the sprinklers, control the air conditioning. And while that sounds really weird, okay, well, if you turn the temperature up in a room, suddenly thermal's not such a problem anymore. Or the sprinkler system. I guess the fire department's coming. Wow, what an easy way to sneak in as we go around and check each and every floor, but the building's evacuated and you're dressed like a firefighter. I think I saw that in the movie once with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Right?
Or even just independently controlling the lights in a room.
Creating shadow, yeah.
Creating shadow. Like, I'm pretty sure you can, especially since, the technology level are above what we have today, I'm pretty sure you could probably overload the lights to essentially blind people.
Yeah, like there's so much you can do. And again, that's not just walking up with your Panther assault cannon or your Remington street sweeper or putting like your cyber blades in someone's face. No, because you know what happens when you start leaving a trail of bodies? The cops start showing up, the FBI starts showing up, and you start attracting a lot more attention. If there's a technical glitch, yeah, odds are eventually the mega corporation or whoever's going to find it, but they're more likely to notice the dead guy on the floor as opposed to, oh man, the air conditioning system went off again tonight. Weird, right? It's just going to get logged as like a system error as opposed to when the coroner shows up. Like support characters can be incredibly powerful depending on setting. And even when we take this further, when we come back from break, you look at games like Star Wars and Star Trek. Like Star Trek is almost entirely support characters. Like Data, Geordi, Dr. Crusher, the EMH. Like, who's the combat character in each game? I guess Worf? Maybe, like, I'm thinking for Voyager, who's their security officer?
Chakotay?
Tuvok.
Tuvok,
Tuvok and Chakotay. Whereas, who's probably a lot more effective as a support character? 7 of 9. She can fight, but she's also really technically smart. So if I had to pick between Tuvok and Chakotay as opposed to, say, 7 of 9 and Harry Kim, I'm probably taking 7 of 9 and Harry Kim, because those two can do a lot more as opposed to I'm going to phaser everything in sight. But we got a lot to talk about. So when we come back, we'll see where this conversation takes us. Once again, this has been the Spellbook right here on Guelph's Community Radio. This is 93.3 CFRU, 250 watts of hackable power. We'll be back, guys, right after this, right here on the Spellbook.
Hi, this is Kevin Bright and the Upper York Mandolin Orchestra, and you're listening to CFRU 93.3 in Guelph.
Welcome back to the Spellbook right here on 93.3 CFRU Guelph Community Radio, as we're talking about support characters, healers, and the people who play in the mid and back line, basically.
Like, one of the characters that I think is a support character, and we've talked about them briefly, is the Bard. And the Bard, for example, in a fantasy game, is like the overarching term that most often gets used with this particular character class is known as the face, aka the social type of encounter. And those characters, if someone happens to be particularly outgoing, because not every bard is a musician. In fact, everybody automatically assumes, I know Pointy Hat did a video on this like a couple months ago about bards and how everyone portrays them as these horny storytellers or singers. No, that can be epic poets. That can be people who are interpretive dancers. That can be people who maybe they perform music, but it's not just some jerk on a lute. It could be a drummer. It could be anybody who plays any type of instrument, maybe like a harp, or it's a skald, like a person who tells a story. But that's the type of person who you have them, well, we need to get information from this person who has the highest charisma and social skills here, because odds are they're a good liar. They're a good person to read into someone's body language. So if someone happens to be lying to you, who am I going to trust? Am I going to trust the guy who knows how to read people for a living? Or am I going to trust Gimli the dwarf with his battle axe? What do you think?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like there are like we've essentially kind of been talking about the smarty pants support heroes thus far, and there is definitely a big room or a big like space for the charismatic support heroes, because those are going to be the ones who are generally going to try and get you out of trouble before it becomes an issue.
Yeah, or the guys who, when you get caught, because you will, that's the type of person who can talk you out of a situation. There was a YouTube video I saw years ago, and the advice that was given in that video was be like Fletch, that old Chevy Chase movie. So let's say you need to get into a guarded area, cover yourself in some ridiculous costume and just be like, oh man, I had a horrible night. They tarred and feathered me. And odds are the guard's going to be caught off guard saying, what? Are you okay? Yeah. Just, I just got to go inside and shower. I don't want to talk about it. And your DM will probably reward you for being bold enough to do that. And there's another thing too, with like a support character who's a more social character. The example I've heard this called is the Bardic Knock spell. What does that mean? Walk up to a door and knock. Think about that. If I'm breaking into, okay, Mount Doom's probably not the best example of this, but let's say I'm breaking into Fisk Tower from Marvel, and the Kingpin I know is at the top of the floor. I'm going to come up to the front lobby. Oh, hi, Uber. Oh, I got a delivery. It's Taco Bell. But I don't see a name. Can you help me? Can you help me out? Your DM should be like, flower delivery, food. That's really smart. You've just basically, because who can ignore a knocking door? It's like a ringing phone. Your first inclination, well, I guess modern days is to ignore it and let it go to voicemail. But way back in the day, you heard a phone ringing, you'd probably want to answer it. Or someone knocks at your door, you're going to be curious. Because who, with bad intentions, is just going to knock at the front door?
Well, yeah, exactly. And like that's the thing, is that is kind of the crux of it with the support character, is you want to find ways to think outside of the box. You want to find creative solutions that will, maybe on their own, they might not be the best solution, but when you add in the rest of the party and the rest of the players and what they can do, it generally will lead to something great. Maybe not necessarily successful, because the dice hate us sometimes.
It's true.
But still something that's awesome.
Well, yeah, because like these characters, especially social characters, they can build relationships. They can help suss out information. They can also look for sources of adventures and rumors. Like, you go to a tavern or the city guard and say, hey, are there any active bounties? What is going on? We know the king, do you? And you can roll one of your social skills and you can probably bluff someone to tell you, or to put this in a cyberpunk setting, okay, I'm going to pull up as much information about so and so and try to social engineer them. Like we see scam baiters like Kit Boga and Trilogy Media and Jim Browning do the same thing on YouTube every day. Or to put this in Star Trek terms, I'm gonna ask the library computer. I'm gonna ask Elcars, what can we do here? What are the options? The ship is a support character. Like you have access to the medical base, the replicator, the holodeck. You can run simulations of the environment before you go down, providing you have enough information. And again, with just like having access to people as a tool, that's something that a lot of GMs really appreciate. Because again, we want to make cool NPCs here. I'm not saying I want to have everybody who has talk with animals talk to every single bumblebee, but that's an option too. I guess that's where we kind of transition out of social is into magical support that isn't just healing. What else can a support character do?
Oh, that's there's a lot. Just looking at what I have access to with my character in our campaign, I brought it up already. Things like rope trick. You're traveling through a dangerous area, like in the campaign that you're running right now. We're not safe. There is nowhere within a reasonable amount of distance that would be safe for us to take a rest. And this is just my perception of it. You can confirm or deny it all you want.
Very true. Yep.
Yeah, like knowing what I know about GMing and stuff like that, and with my experience, we are not safe. But if the group needs it, me as a support, I can go, you know what? Nah. We're going to take a minute. We're going to take an hour. We're going to have a short rest. Grab a rope. Use some magic. Hey, we're in an extra dimensional space now. Let's chill out for a bit.
Yeah, and that gives you time to reset resources, gives you time to reset planning. And depending on group composition, depending on whatever system you happen to be playing, again, we'll stick with that kind of D&D because it's easy right here. That's a chance for a druid to reset their wild shapes. That's enough time for a warlock to get their like spell slots back. There's a lot of where a short rest can really be beneficial. Whereas, your barbarian and ranger and your paladin, yeah, they can do some pretty cool stuff, but they can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like you need to have the ability to not just, as we mentioned, to manage your resources. You got to plan ahead for what's potentially coming down the road here. And that's the problem when you overstack, you don't necessarily want to bring in a SWAT team every single time. Sometimes you need a police negotiator. You need a person who's a tech specialist. Like a good example. Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And hey, even looking at a SWAT team, there is generally always one guy that's in the rear with the gear.
Yeah, like for example, let's take a look at the movie Aliens, favorite movie of all time. Let's look at the composition of a squad, which is 5 guys. You've got a rifleman, which is your standard whoever in this list. Let's say Hicks, who's the corporal. Hudson, who's also another rifleman, but he's also comm tech, so he knows how to fix things. He knows how to use computers. Drake and Vasquez are smart gunners. They are heavy support. They are firepower, but you need to put them in the rear because their smart guns are hard to move. So if someone wants to pick them off with a sniper rifle, they can do that. But if they're laying down a couple thousand rounds a second or whatever, then they've got some options. Then you have another medic like Dietrich, or I think Frost was I think he was a rifleman, but you have all these different support skills built into your squad. So you do have firepower, but you have various skills that everybody can rely on while everyone's a competent fighter. So it's understanding what resources do we have available, what resources can we bring online, and who is going to be the person who inevitably leads things through and directs how we all kind of do this. Because the thing with support characters, you have to be a team player. You really do. You can help decide a strategy, but ultimately you are going to be using your resources to augment everybody else. And that's not a bad thing, because being the person who helps Conan land that critical strike, if you put bless on them, or if your wizard's trying to figure out some arcane problem and your druid or cleric cast guidance on them to give them that little D4 push that really pushes it to where it needs to be, that's rewarding as hell.
Oh, 100%. And one of the things too with that is you want to, so if you are aiming to play a support character, which is something that I think everybody should do at least once.
Exactly. Yeah.
When it comes to kind of going back to the whole talk about magic and stuff like that, you want to also kind of aim for magic items that will, or even technological items in, sci-fi settings that will assist that. And I'm going to go back to my artificer with the items that I've chosen for that character. Adamantine scale mail. It's armor, but it keeps me from dying, which helps me, continue to be a support for longer. Helm of telepathy. This gives me not only the ability to potentially stop a fight before it happens, but it also gives me the ability to communicate with the rest of the group in a way that's not going to get overheard by the enemy. Because in combat, you can shout out and, say quick sentences to the rest of the group. But the people you are fighting, if they're intelligent, they can hear you. And it also so you kind of want to if your GM is saying, hey, you can get these magic items, or you can pick a couple of magic items, or even if your character is or if they're not and you're looking for magic items for your character, you want to look for items that are going to help you in that support role more than they're going to be damage dealing. Because everybody, having the Orpal longsword is great and all, but it's not going to help you shape the battlefield.
Yeah,
which is kind of what the support is supposed to do in combat. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because again, it's awesome to have the +2 poison dagger or whatever, but if I can't communicate with the cultist who has the information I need, it would be awesome if I had a ability that would help me speak a language or something like that. I mean, one item I'm aiming for in my game with my friend Peter is I want a ring of speak with animals. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, because I want to gain more information. Plus I want to lean into story stuff as well. My character is very connected to nature as a druid, and I've got cool magical weapons, but that's not going to help me get out of every single situation. Even some of the magic items I've handed you guys don't seem useful at first, but you use sneezing powder on a boss, and that was meant to be a gag item, and you guys used it tremendously effectively. So part of being a support class is using items in unusual ways. For example, I think I gave this to you guys. I'm not 100% sure. I think I gave this to you maybe last season. You guys have an alchemy jug. alchemy jug can produce different quantities of liquid, be it oil, mead, mayonnaise, but you can also have it produce acid and stuff like that. So you want to make alchemist fire, you can do that. You can, if I allow it, which I probably would, you could make the chemicals and build up resources that way. Plus, you can also resell acid for like a lot of money too, depending. So, or if you really want to be a real jerk, if you have the decanter of endless water, it's going to take a while, but you could flood a dungeon with it. So we're going to take another break here on the show, our final break. And when we come back, we'll talk more about playing support heroes, tips, strategies, and why you should always maybe give this class a whirl. Even if you don't think you might enjoy it, you might be surprised. So we'll be back right here on Guelph's Community Radio. This is 93.3 CFRU right on the University of Guelph campus. This is the Spellbook. I'm Mike, that's Damien, and you're not. And we'll be right back right after this.
You're listening to CFRU 93.3 FM.
Welcome back to the Spellbook right here on 93.3 CFRU Guelph Community Radio as we're talking about support characters. Now, Mike, what would be your number one tip for somebody who's thinking about playing a support character?
Don't think you are the heal bot. I think that's the thing. When people hear support, they think, but I don't want to be the doctor. And that's not the right way you should think about it. For example, not everybody who can cast healing magic is necessarily good at it. Like clerics, everybody assumes all clerics are, all they do is heal. Yeah, they can, but druids are surprisingly good healers. Wizards, not really. So it's unusual because just because you have the same abilities doesn't mean you can do the same things. If you kind of get what I'm kind of laying down here, I'd say my number one tip is think outside the box when you look at your abilities. Don't just look beyond the words. Like, for example, I've mentioned druids and clerics a few times. We can really shape the battlefield, but we can also keep you alive a lot longer if we're smart and we plan ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty valid. I think for my part, and I know there are some GMs that aren't going to like this, and it's probably annoyed you more than once. Pets. Don't go overboard with them.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that, believe me.
If you're going to have multiple permanent pets, try to limit it to 2 or 3 at the most.
Because it slows the game down.
Yeah, it definitely can, especially if you want to do something like an action and bonus action with them every turn type deal. My artificer has 2 pets at the moment. I'm considering when we get our next level if I might want to potentially get myself familiar. But that's a ways down the road yet. But I have my battlesmith, or I have my steel defender, which comes with being a battlesmith. That's my off tank. That's the pet that just kind of sits there in combat and makes it hard for the enemies to hit the actual tank. And I also have my homunculus, which essentially acts as my hands within, I think it's 60 feet or 120 feet, one of the two. Which basically lets me cast touch spells at a distance.
That's invaluable because you can do stuff others can't. And that's the thing about being a support class. It's knowing your toolkit well.
Yeah. And it's and that kind of gets back to what I was saying by have pets, get a familiar, get a homunculus, things like that. These things are going to help you extend your reach across the battlefield. Yeah, you might not be doing I might not do as much damage as a ranger who is spec'd specifically for ranged combat, because they have all the bells and whistles and extra abilities. But I have the versatility to be able to project myself to a larger cross section of the battlefield if I need to be.
Like, one of the tricks I've learned as a support character is, again, with a familiar, let's say you pick a spider. That spider can deliver touch spells. It would be really tragic if, that spider somehow cast Shocking Grasp and it just suddenly this guard just drops in the middle of the room. What the hell happened?
That's hilarious.
Yeah, or if you're a warlock or whatever and you have an imp familiar, that imp is invisible. If that imp takes the help action, that creature you're attacking suddenly has disadvantage. Suddenly that's really gonna suck. And you are inflicting stuff on the battlefield that everybody can take advantage of. And with support heroes, more so than any other class, it's knowing the depth of your toolkit, what the limits of your toolkit are, but you're also looking for synergies that may not be that may not necessarily be readily apparent. Like, you're looking for combos. Like, one famous combo that our group uses is the Wombo combo. The Wombo combo is somebody casts Darkness, I cast Spike Growth, hilarity ensues, because they can't see their way out of the darkness, and every time they walk 5 feet, they're taking 2d4 damage. And if I cast Spike Growth, if I cast Plant Growth, then Spike Growth, you're going nowhere fast. And it's incredibly damaging. And now I've comboed that, and now our other characters can do whatever they need to pick this person apart or to get around a problem, right? And again, it's using your toolkit in unusual ways. For example, I know with Plant Growth, I've said to my DM, Peter, I'm like, could I use Plant Growth to strengthen vines to strengthen a bridge? And he's like, yeah, there's moss and lichens. Yeah, why not? I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Or like, hey, there's a field of mushrooms here. Can I use them to grow so we can get food or whatever? Yeah, all right, that's cool. That's using a spell that is, you think looks useless, but it's really not. Like, one example you brought up to me recently, because Fabricate is an incredibly powerful spell if you're smart with it.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, if you meet the conditions of the spell, obviously, and use it correctly, it could be the deciding factor between victory and defeat. But it requires you to plan ahead. Like, it takes 10 minutes to cast. It's, you have to have all of the requisite resources to be able to, make the thing. So, like, it's one of those things that you have to balance and you have to plan around. Another, like, I'm actually kind of glad that you brought up spells that don't necessarily have an obvious use when you pick them. Back last season for our game, when we got the Fey Pact with Non-C, I chose Encode Thoughts as the spell I took, which, as far as an enchantment spell, not super useful in most cases. It's really not useful unless you have something to go with it, such as Detect Thoughts. Or with the way that our last session had gone, where I'm using telepathy to talk to a dude that's helping protect a sleeping elf. And after he gave me the directions to get to where his body is, I was able to pull that out, pull the thought strand out and essentially give that information to the wizard in the group, who also more than likely has detect thoughts as a spell. Basically making sure that I can support the rest of the group by passing that information to other people.
Yeah, because like the thing is, when you start to look at your spell list or whatever abilities you have, be unconventional. Don't be a jerk about it. Like, because again, you mentioned pets. One of the worst nightmares you can run into as a DM is if someone plays a druid and they're Circle of the Land. That's the summoning class. It can get real stupid real fast, and you can break games and you can kind of ruin it for everybody else. Like, for example, I'm going to do this in my friend Peter's game and he's going to hate me for it. I can summon a bunch of giant flies. You're like, okay, who cares? That's flying mounts that I can summon 8 of them. Cool. Didn't see that coming, did you, jerk? Or I can summon a bunch of poisonous snakes, or I can summon a bunch of wolves. Suddenly, I have a bunch of 30 hit point meat shields that have pack tactics. And some of these creatures, like if I summon a bunch of velociraptors or deinonychuses, that's pack tactics and multi-attack on top of that. That's really friggin' useful, really friggin' annoying, so don't do this to your DM. But, you can also use a spell and summon a face spirit, and they can polymorph you into a flying T-Rex. Now, that's funny precisely once. Don't do it more than once every couple months.
Yeah.
Because you're going to annoy people.
Like, that's just like in our campaign, I could, starting next level, when I get my next infusion, I could give every person in the party a familiar. Because one of the infusions one of the options for infusion is I can replicate any common magic item. Spell Rot Tattoo.
I knew you were going to say
level
that.
1
Yep.
is a common magic item. So I can just a tattoo. So I give one person a tattoo. They use it, summon their familiar, and just repeat ad nauseum.
Yeah,
until everybody in the group has their own familiar.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things you can do with support heroes. You can really change the power level of your games if you're smart. So if you're going to play a support hero, do your homework, as we said last time, and you'll be able to really reward your players and your game master with a wonderful and hopefully fun experience. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Spellbook today. So Damien, once again, if people want to get a hold of the show, how would they go about doing that?
That would be the spellbookshow@gmail.com, and we would love to hear from you.
We absolutely would. So be sure to check us out. We are going to be doing a back to school show next week, talking about how do you find a game or how do you go about looking for one in general. So we'll talk about that and more as we go into the school year. So hopefully you're all settled into residence or you're getting ready to settle in. If it's your first year, welcome to Guelph. It's a pretty cool city. I enjoyed. So for the Spellbook, we have been.
I am Damien Magical Hack Morphit.
My name is Mike the Birdman Ashway, saying be excellent to each other, and we'll catch you guys again next week, right here on 93.3 CFRU. This has been the Spellbook. Where's my mouse? There it is. All right, cool. So, yeah, just let Alex know the...
It's not enough. We have a gallery of villains to look out for, but now we could be infiltrated by a shape changer. I can't even tell if any of you are acting strange because you've been replaced or because this group is full of weirdos.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Spellbook. If you happen to have any comments or suggestions, please send us an email at thespellbookshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're hungry for more, you can find Mike at thisweekingeek.net, covering a variety of nerdy topics, and Damien on YouTube at Magical Hack Makes for more TTRPG conversation.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.